Good morning, good afternoon again. My name is Benjamin Stevenin. I'm the CEO of Academ. I wanted to thank EFMD and Rima One for co-organizing this series of webinars. This is the webinar dedicated to the Americas. So we have 5 speakers with us today, coming from different parts of the region. So I want to thank all of you. We have Heloisa, who is coming from Getulio-Vargas in Brazil. Jane is coming from Canada, Sobe School. Carolina is coming from Universidad de La Sabana in Colombia. Jennifer is coming from UMass Lowell in the US. And Rogerio is coming from INSPER in Brazil. So thank you, each one of you. I will let you maybe introduce yourself briefly for the people to know you, where you're coming from, and what is your role in your institution. Heloisa?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Benjamin, for having me. Thank you also, my colleagues. I'm glad to share this webinar with you. My name is Heloisa Monaco. I'm a manager at Fundacao-Getulio-Vargas, known as FGV in Brazil. I work at FGV Sao Paulo School of Business Administration, one of FGV's schools. I'm responsible for accreditation processes, participation in rankings, and collecting and disseminating institutional information. FGV Sao Paulo is a private, non-profit higher education institution founded in 1954. The school is a leading institution in the country. We have been Triple Crown since 2004. Again, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Mulatz. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I'm the Director of Strategy and Accreditation for the Sobe School of Business at St. Mary's University. We are AACSB accredited since about 2003. We are seeking EQUIS accreditation, and I also work on other kinds of quality initiatives for the school, including being the kind of project lead on our PRME champion level engagement with that organization. And working on other kind of curriculum and quality initiatives to support the Dean and the efforts of the Sobe School of Business. So I'm very happy to be here today. I've enjoyed very much, we've enjoyed very much, I think, working together in the preparation for this panel. And so I thank you for tuning in and look forward to being part of the conversation.
Thank you. Rogerio?
Hello, everybody. I'm Rogerio Costa. I've been working at INSPER for 15 years. I'm currently managing the accreditation and internal evaluation department. I'm also the registrar for the college. We have Triple Crown. We have AMBA, AACSB, and EQUIS. And because we are not only a business school, but an integrated school with an engineering unit as well, we have just started actually seeking the ABET accreditation. So our first reports are due in September.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Percival. I'm the Associate Dean at the Manning School of Business at UMass Lowell. I've been there for 3 years, and prior to that, I was an Associate Dean actually at the newest university in Ontario. It's now named Ontario Tech, and I was an Associate Dean there for 4 or 5 years. So I've had some international experience being an Associate Dean. UMass Lowell is a public institution, and we are part of the UMass state system. So we have some reporting that happens both within our school to the university as a whole, and then up to our state system. And so we have accreditation with AACSB as well as our regional accreditation that we take care of.
Thank you. Carolina?
Well, thank you. Hello, my name is Carolina Velasquez. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed us as much as we did preparing this webinar. I work for Universidad de La Sabana. I've been working there for the last 6 years. I started as the Head of Internationalization of the International School of Economic and Administrative Sciences, and currently I'm the program director of the Bachelor in International Business, which is an IPAS accredited program. La Sabana is a private university. We were the youngest university in Colombia achieving the national accreditation. And we were the first university in Latin America having all the bachelors in business with the IPAS accreditation.
Thank you, Carolina. So for the one of you that participated in the previous sessions of the How to webinars, what we want is to have an interactive session. So at any moment in time, please shoot your question in the chat, in the question. I will monitor everything. The discussion today is the view of 5 experts. It's not the law of EFMD, so we are not here to actually discuss the standards of EQUIS or EPAS. We're just here to hear best practice from 5 professionals giving us their view on their job, on quality and in accreditation. So please use the chat. We have defined a series of questions, but we will all be really happy if we do not finalize those questions and we have questions coming from you. So I will start with a few, but I hope that you pick up and ask questions to challenge the panel today. So the first question, and I'm looking at you, Heloisa, is what is the value of international accreditation for you?
Okay. At FGV Sao Paulo, accreditations are part of the school's internationalization strategy. Being an international school is our objective since the foundation of the school. The origin of the school lies in the cooperation agreement signed between Brazil and the United States in the 50s. Faculty of Michigan State University were the first professors of the school, and the first Brazilian professors of the school hold their PhDs from Michigan. So since then, it has been clear for the school that the international alliances, exchange initiatives are key for attracting the best students, faculty, and staff. In the 70s, the school became an IASSB member, and when in the end of the 90s, the IASSB opened more intensively to accredited institutions outside the US, FGV Sao Paulo was invited to apply for it, and the school was giving IASSB accreditation in 2000. Just the next year, 2001, we received EQUIS, and in 2004, accreditation. Since then, we can say that we enjoy the benefits of being accredited by international agencies. The one that I mentioned, the benefits is attracting the best students, faculty, and staff, and also the school has been one of the top names in Brazil for organizations looking for educational partners in the country. In my opinion, the school history of success and leadership in Brazil lies in significant part in internationalization, and international accreditations play an important role in it.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Jane?
The value of international accreditation. We are new. We've just, with our EQUIS accreditation bid, and as part of kind of reviewing that as an opportunity and preparing a rationale kind of internally and within the university, our broader university as well, we started off by looking at all of the evaluated research. I'm happy to share, we developed a bit of a syllabus actually and, of that, and I'd be happy to share that, you know, with the group or through the chat, however we could do that. But the one that was most kind of compelling to us was a piece of work by Christopher Lejeune, who basically proposed that, you know, in seeking international accreditation, you know, it presents a possibility of kind of elevating 3 kind of core capabilities around strategizing, changing, and branding. So we looked at these and kind of applied them to our own, you know, school situation. And of them, we thought, well, strategizing, you know, we kind of have, you know, our shop in order in that respect, you know, maybe largely because of our AACSB accreditation. So of the remaining, we thought, sure, changing, yes, and especially as it comes to the kind of transversal standards, and particularly around connections with practice. We thought, you know, if we change, if we develop our capabilities in that area as part of our kind of EQUIS bid, that would, you know, serve us very well. But it was mostly branding where we thought there was the greatest potential, you know, or the greatest value, and particularly with that group of kind of global strivers, you know, whether that's faculty or whether it's students. We see a lot of value in the branding around, you know, credibility, around legitimacy, around signaling quality to kind of international audiences to be the key kind of value, and not just international accreditations, but maybe, you know, a second accreditation, which, you know, EQUIS will be for us.
Rogerio?
I was just looking at my checklist here that I prepared for this, because I think it's very important to mention, and I agree with Jane that the first and most basic is international recognition and reputation. So she mentioned branding, and I think it's important if you want to be recognized for your brand to be accredited. It's also important if you see value in the standards, the criteria, if they make sense to you, they are a good opportunity for you to formalize, internalize those standards and criteria inside your school. Also, in our case, especially in Brazil, I think Heloisa would agree, it's essential to have accreditation in order for you to open the opportunities for you for more academic partnerships, and then consequently for your students to have more exchange opportunities, and also for your faculty. Also, something that I was talking to my team, and we mentioned that having feedback and having views, different views from global experts, it's extremely valuable for the school. It's a quality process, so it makes you self-assess yourself, and also it's a process of continuous improvement. So it's very relevant if you have this culture of continuous improvement. And finally, and again, especially for us in Brazil, because we don't have, I would dare to say, many good examples of excellent schools here, it's an opportunity for you to benchmark. So I think those are the...
Rogerio, which order of schools which order of accreditation did you do? Did you do like Heloisa, EAESP, EQUIS, AMBA, or how did you do it?
I would say we started the most logic for us would be AMBA, then EAESP, and then EQUIS. And I think it made sense for us.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer?
So we only have AACSB accreditation, which is, I guess, somewhat common in the United States. And I think one of the reasons that I was recruited internationally was, I think, one of the great benefits of having international accreditation, which, as Rogerio said, was to really look at those different perspectives and make sure that you haven't fallen into that trap of just doing the same old because that's the way you've always done it. By having international accreditation, you get to draw on best practices from all over the globe and people that you would never have met otherwise, staying within your regional network. And sometimes you find some commonalities that maybe you didn't expect. It helps you figure out how to really work on diversity issues, both within your own kind of community, but also to help your students prepare. I mean, the workforce isn't going to be focused only on a small regional frame anymore. It really is a global enterprise, and to help give your students and your faculty that global perspective, I think really helps you train that next generation. Thank you.
Carolina?
Well, just to add to what my colleagues have said, I would say that in our case, the value for this of the international accreditation process was that we were comparing ourselves basically with our national peers. And we were feeling that we were okay, but then when you start engaging in this international process, you know that you have more challenges. Of course, it requires more effort, but as it's more work, more effort, it's also much more rewarding. and your stakeholders also see it and appreciate it, and you see the results after you start the process. I would say one of the most important things is also the feedback that you receive from external entities, no? Because that provides you like good recommendations, practices. Sometimes you are aware of the things that you have in your institution, and you know there are some things that are not that strong, you have weakness, but when someone from the outside tell you the thing, it's like, okay, it's a must that we have to work now. And also not only you, but the directives of the university give you the support to that. So that's also very important. And of course, as the other people have said, the recognition. Reputation is very important. And once you achieve the international accreditation, you are also able to start these dialogues with other international accredited schools, so that enhance and strengthen the level of your partnerships as well.
Thank you. I'm going to jump on one of the things you just said, because there is a question coming from Sebastian from Universidad del Rosario. And he's asking, during and after accreditation, which have been the most challenging improvement in your school? Which have been those aspects that are below standards, and what has been the plan to improve them? So that is linked to exactly what you were saying, Carolina. So I don't know if one of you want to take the lead on that question.
I can go, that's fine. So I joined our institution the year before our accreditation on-site review. So that makes things a little exciting. And so you don't have a lot of time to make changes if things aren't quite the way you would like them to be. In our particular case, we ended up with a 1-year kind of revise and resubmit scenario because of our assurance of learning process. We developed a new model that engaged faculty at a much higher level and really focused on faculty driving curriculum. But before that, it had been run completely out of the dean's office with very little faculty engagement. And that was an area that we knew we had to improve on. But I mean, obviously one can't hide something like that when the accreditation team comes either. And so really it was a matter of showing we knew what we had to improve. We had a plan, and the team really talked to us about the benefits of the plan that we had developed, how we could improve that plan, and then really we just had to show them that we were going to implement the plan, right? And I think the thing to understand is that the team that's visiting isn't there to take away an accreditation. They really are there to help support your school, help make it the best that it can be, and to provide you constructive feedback. And if there's areas for improvement, they're helping you along the way. And you know, it really is a valuable process as long as you're willing to take that out of it.
Carolina, do you want to speak about the feedback from your different EPAS accreditation and
well,
how you improve?
in our case, as Jennifer mentioned, the AOL thing, but it was very nice in our case because after the process, I mean, you have a lot of different professors in the business school, and most of them are practitioners, right? People that come in from the companies, they're really good, they know a lot, but they don't have this expertise in pedagogy, right? So with this process, it helped us a lot to start courses and training in pedagogy. And now I can tell that we have many professors that are sharing their experiences with other universities, which is really good. Also in internationalization processes, that was one of our below standards area. And it encourages a lot to strengthen our strategy in this area, and not only focuses us on mobility, but also in internationalization at home strategies. And in research, we have made a lot of improvement in that area. I think before we were focusing more on quantity of publications and stuff, but now we're more focused and oriented on quality of those aspects. And we have established like some strategies, very like concrete and punctual, because that's one of the things that I would like to highlight from these processes. The recommendation and improvement areas are very concrete, and yes, and they give you like exactly the things that you have to work on. It's not like a general thing, but concrete areas that in which with a specific strategies you can achieve them.
And how did you push this change in your institution?
Well, you have a commitment when you receive the accreditation, and you know that you have to send every year your progress report. So it's something, it's a given thing. You have to work and to show results in short time in each of those areas. So that makes you like the support also from the directive, because you know that you have to show the results or otherwise you will lose the accreditation. And it's not only the reputation, but also its investment, no?
Yeah, thank you. Jane? Oh, Heloisa, sorry. You're muted, Heloisa.
Pardon me. In our case, the recommendations of PRTs teams are part of our inputs for our strategic management process. So it's part of the action plan that are developed by the management levels that we have at our school. So it's really important for us to have these inputs and to have these inputs considered in our strategic plan.
If I may add something, I think considering ACSB, the most common areas that schools must work in the initial accreditation are assurance of learning and also faculty qualifications. I think those are the most, I think it's unanimous that those are the areas everybody has some work to do before getting the initial accreditation. And I'm interested to learn how the new standards and also the impact dimension is going to be playing, I think, a new role, and I think be the next challenge for everybody who's already accredited. And EQUIS, if we think about here in Brazil, specifically internationalization, maybe Latin America as well, but internationalization for Brazilians, because we are the only country here who speaks Portuguese, and we are a continental country, so we could think about internationalization just inside the country, if that would be possible. So that's the main challenge for us, especially compared with European countries.
Thank you. Jane?
I think I agree with the specific comments that my colleagues have made. I think one of the, and it's not to a specific standard or improvements, it's maybe about culture within the school. And one of the challenges that we've had is talking about applied research or community engaged research or kind of non-traditional research outputs, and kind of trying to elevate those, shine a light on those. There isn't really a common set of, or generally accepted set of metrics that demonstrate, the quality or the impact of that work. And so that has been a challenge for us. It's very mission aligned for us to be doing applied and community engaged research. And as the accrediting bodies are talking more about impact as opposed to quality, but I think the conversation maybe in our own PhD programs in terms of what we value in terms of research output hasn't quite changed quickly as we're being asked to change and as we feel the need to change and the call from the business community. So that's something that has been challenging for us. I think it's probably a challenge that's shared amongst a lot of business schools. And I think even the accrediting bodies are, in the early stages of helping us define our, the storytelling around the impact associated with, applied, community engaged, or kind of non-traditional research outputs.
And Jane, if I may, because you are at the moment in your initial accreditation with EQUIS, like when you're submitting your data sheet, you're submitting your SAR. So do you see improvement from one version to the next? Like how do you work around that? Because the team in the FMD is actually providing you inputs, and how do you work around those inputs?
Where you haven't yet, I mean, we've just submitted our data sheet, but it was multiple iterations of it, so I had seen how it had changed and how we were trying to collect, different data in support of it. So it has, we've been making changes to our faculty activity reporting system, for example, to better collect the data we need to report on for EQUIS. but we haven't yet gotten kind of feedback on it. We have recognized that we believe there to be a lot more of that work going on than we know about it. And so I think that's why it's that cultural, kind of change, and, in terms of, what kind of work are you doing, if it's report writing, even if it's through what you consider to be consulting, that's something that we want to better collect. So, so we're at the beginning of that journey, but we're kind of eager to hear about it. And the comment was made about, who you consider to be your comparator group. And then, the opportunity to really expand that and get different perspectives from different schools or different kind of operating environments around the world. So we see that as a big part of the value of this process and look forward to that.
Thank you. We have two questions that are kind of linked, so I will put them into one, which are for multi-accreditations. So there's a question about from Hamid and KG, which are overlap between accreditations. So two of you are Triple Crown. Jane, you are in the process of going for EQUIS. Jennifer, Caroline, you have one accreditation, maybe looking at others as well. So the question is, why looking at multi-accreditation first? The second would be the overlap. So the question from KG is, for example, if you have ASCSB and now you're applying for EQUIS, is your work going to double? Is it going to be 50% more? So if you could maybe give a bit of vision of how it works. Rogerio, I see you smile, so I think you will be first for that one.
My case is going to be 4 times the work, I think, because now we are going to the 4th, and it's a different area. No, I'm kidding. Actually, of course, especially considering EQUIS and ASSB, we have some similarities. Of course, the work that you have done for the first one is going to be useful for the next, but you have to be careful not to just copy the report or the your answers, your positions. They are different. You have to keep this in mind. But especially basic data, things that are going to support you to for you to make your case that you adhere to the standards or the criteria. This is going to be used at the same time, but you need to keep in mind when you're preparing your report or preparing to receive the peer review team that they are different, and it's very uncomfortable if you mix those two. And I mean terminology, and even something that is specific to a specific standard or criteria. But for the back office team, the accreditation team, of course, you don't double your work. You just have additional tasks. And I think the biggest challenge for the head of accreditation in a school with more than one accreditation is to think globally about everything that you need to ask for help from faculty, offices, and everything, and then avoid asking more than once for the same data.
Yeah, if you can add something here, I completely agree with Rogerio, but I would say that the challenge of collecting data, they are more they independent of the type of accreditation that you have or are looking for. For example, if you are operational environment, I mean your information architecture in the operational level, if it is not integrated, this is a challenge for you, because we are talking about management tools. So we need to integrate the information of our environment. If you have an architecture where your transaction level of systems of data are not integrated, you have to do it in the management level during our preparing the reports for accreditation. So it's a huge task to integrate data in a management level when you have your transactional systems not integrated. Let me give you an example. In case of faculty data, at our school, CVs and intellectual contributions, papers, research projects, etc., are in an external system, a web-based platform controlled by Brazilian Ministry of Education. And program data, curriculum, courses, credits, registration data, courses offered, scheduled, student registration. These data are in transactional systems, not integrated systems. So if data are not integrated in the operational level, they must be integrated then in the management level. And this is a huge task for the accreditation staff.
Thank you. Carolina?
No.
No?
I mean, in this moment, we just have like one accreditation, and actually in La Sabana, we have something like peculiar, right? Because we are different. In La Sabana, it's a comprehensive university, and there are two different academic units regarding management training. So there is INALDE Business School, which is oriented in executive education only. And then it's us, which we are the International School of Economic and Administrative Sciences, and we are only with bachelor programs and master's degree, and also well the PhD, but not executive education. So in our case, we have the IPAS, and we were focused on that processes, and INALDE has the AMBA and the AACSB accreditation. So in our case, we are like different units, but now we're like working together to see if we can also join them for the AACSB next process.
And just to add,
sorry, please, Rogerio, please.
No, just to add something that I was thinking about. Even if you have only one accreditation, probably you have also national accreditation or regulation. So actually you're always working with more than one agency. So I think it's a challenge for anyone.
Thank you, Rogerio. Jennifer?
Sure. I mean, we do have our regional accreditation as well as AACSB. And I think it goes back to Rogerio's point earlier on that if the international accreditation fits within your mission and the strategies that your institution has, you're trying to collect that data and monitor your strategic progress anyways. And so the accreditation shouldn't be a lot more work other than the data that you should be monitoring to improve your own processes, to monitor what's going on, right? It really is supposed to integrate within your culture and kind of the status quo of what you want to have happen. It's not supposed to be that extra work add-on that someone does in a hidden corner in the basement. It really is supposed to be part of the life of the college.
Yeah, Jane?
I think that's a really important point, that if, it's well aligned, with the strategic direction of your school, you're doing this work. And to Heloisa's comment as well, I do think that, one of the biggest challenges is around information management. And when you're, collecting that data, you're trying to integrate the data, and that will serve, that will serve multiple accreditations and other initiatives to, participating in rankings and things like that. So I do think that's the foundation of the effort is in kind of information management, in data collection, and it will, if you get that right, you're pretty far along the way.
We had a session with in Asia Pacific, and we had some example of schools that were saying that the quality office become the receptacle of the data of the institution. And, because you're looking at having a transversal vision, you're asking for data from the register, you're asking data from the research office, you're asking data from the dean's office. So you have compiled a lot of data. Those data sometimes do not come clean. So they're just, pushing the data and saying, good luck. So you're doing the work of cleansing those data. And then you become the central data unit of the school with clean set of data. And then the other business unit come back to you and say, oh, by the way, I need a report from my research. Can you help me with that? Do any of you have this vision when you're talking about data? Because there's a lot of schools that feel that the accreditation office become the holder and the guardian of those data. And then all of the school is coming back to them for that.
That's certainly true in our case. At the Sobey School, we are a business school located in a comprehensive university, and I would say that we are driving that agenda for the most part, and particularly in regards to the kind of faculty research piece. You know, that the work that we have done, you know, I project managed the, you know, procurement and the implementation of our faculty activity reporting system, and it was because of our AACSB accreditation that we needed to put that in place. And, you know, so other units of the university, the library, you know, our VP of research services, you know, have been well served by our efforts, and it has been better resourced, I think, because of the importance of our accreditation than it might otherwise have been.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's our case too, because as an accreditation office, we are responsible for the management level, but always in our case, we don't have all the resources to be responsible for the information for managers, because we have just implemented a system, an information system that supports the faculty management and the preparation of accreditation reports. And it is not sufficient to supply all the needs for our management teams. But frequently we are asked to support other units of our school, because we are these, we do this hard task of integrating information, because we need this to support the faculty management and the reports for accreditations. But we face any problems related to this, because the solution that we have implemented, and I think it is the case of all solutions, they don't integrate data for us. We have to do this. Of course, the solution helps us to see the inconsistencies, but we have the hard task of integrating and cleansing the data, as you mentioned, Benjamin, both demanding tasks. I think nowadays we are trying to solve part of the data that are incomplete and sometimes incorrect. We are trying to fix the data in the source system to support better all communities of our school. This is one thing that we are trying to do, that it helps not only our unit, but other units at our school. But I would say that in mid and long-term perspective, my dream is to design and implement at our school an institutional integrated information technology architecture. But at the moment, this is just a dream.
Thank you.
I think the next, you know, frontier for us is going to be on kind of graduate data, you know, so we, you know, so certainly, like, you know, the registrars and for student information, right? Lots of people need that. We certainly need that. And that has been, I think, relatively well developed in terms of the management systems and the kind of university culture around collecting student data. Then, you know, so we have kind of moved to research data, research information, and kind of faculty information. And where we feel most deficient, and I think what we'll be driving next institutionally, is around collecting graduate information, because it is definitely a huge challenge for us. There are other prominent stakeholders in this, you know, maybe advancement being the most, our strongest ally in terms of wanting and needing more information about our graduates, alumni being second to those, but that will be the next, I think, system challenge that we kind of tackle because we feel like the information we have is really insufficient.
Thank you. Carolina?
Yes, I would like to mention, previously you were saying that if we see like a difference between the first data sheet that we sent at the beginning and the one that we did in the last process. And I would say that in this data management process, it's one of the aspects that I have seen like more progress in our case. Of course, as we are a comprehensive university, so there is an institutional administrative unit that is in charge of collecting all the information for different purposes, for register to the Ministry of Education and national accreditation process and stuff. But also within our business school, we have also created this culture of data management, you know. So now, because in the beginning, I mean, we were not that aware that it's very important to have the track of the information. No, I mean, people are easily coming and going from institutions or from different positions, but the data have to remain because you have to have the track, right? So now we are more aware of that. And it's not that before it was only like, okay, we have to collect the data for the moment we're writing the report. Now it's something that we are aware that we have to do it continuously, you know, frequently having, and we have these analytics, and it's much more better for making the strategies and putting like goals, because when you have the data, you can also put like more realistic and challenging goals. So that I would say this process also help you to create like this culture of data management within the people.
Carolina, can I challenge you?
Oh God, okay.
No, you mentioned that you had INALDE, so you have two different entities, but you belong to the same university. So how do you do? Because you talked earlier about not asking twice for the same data to the same stakeholders. So you might have people that are both at INALDE and at your faculty. So how do you share system for them? How do you address that?
People are different. I mean, we're under the same umbrella, but we're very independent, like academic units.
Okay.
Now we are starting to look for some linkage and for some like partnerships between us, because it has no sense. But people are different. We are separate faculty because we want also for the people, for students that engage, for example, in programs for INALDE, to see that they have a different faculty than the ones that are teaching in undergraduate programs. So it's not like having the same people, or no, we're different.
Okay, thank you. Rogerio?
Yeah. I mean,
you want to add anything?
No, I think data management is, as I said, the biggest challenge. Not only to try to meet the demands from accreditations and regulatory processes, which are especially heavy here in Brazil, but also I think it's important to keep in mind that you also need your own indicators, your own metrics, your own information. Of course, if accreditation is aligned to your strategy, most of them will be the same, but you have something additional that nobody's asking you to prove or to give evidence, and you need you want, and you feel the need to collect this data. So it's, I think it's always going to be a challenge, because you have like national accreditations, which are mandatory. You have accreditations that you committed to, like in a marriage. And then you have your aspiration, what you want to be and to measure and to have information. So it's something that I think will be always our challenge. So after one level, like Jane said, we go to another level, and then we are always keeping track of the things we need to gather.
Thank you, Rogerio.
Okay.
I have a question from William. Jane, since he's a Canadian, you're going to be the first one to be on it. How actively do you rely on interdepartmental collaboration at the institution level to collect and manage qualitative and quantitative data?
No, not, I would say in our case, not very heavily. And the data that we need to collect at the business school to support accreditation and participation and other kinds of quality initiatives, including rankings, it seems to exceed the level and types of data that are required by our jurisdictional kind of oversight, which is fairly weak. William, in British Columbia, I think it's relatively similar to what it is in the maritime provinces, which is there's a common set of data that we're required to report on. It's really very basic. So if anything, I think, you know, we have driven the institution to better collect necessary kinds of data. I think, you know, in many cases they do rely on us, on me, maybe specifically, to provide information and do some institutional analysis and reporting. But I do think it's institutionally specific. I'm not sure that that's a function of having accreditation or not having accreditation. I think it may be more about the specifics of the institution. In my institution, it has typically been, I think even they would say it's been weak. You know, we've had a resource of one person in our institutional analysis. Of course, it's building, but it's a slow process at St. Mary's in the Sobey School.
Jennifer, as a former Canadian?
Well, I mean, I don't think in terms of collaboration, I guess it depends on how one defines collaboration. Right. I mean, we are using the systems that the institution is purchasing and pre-populating with a certain set of data. And then we are doing whatever manipulation it is that we need for our own accreditation and supplementing that with the extra pieces that we need to go after and find ourselves. I found that actually our group of institutional research is more interested right now in finding out what I need. So I stop asking them for reports on a regular basis. So if there's a project to plan new reports, so we have a Tableau data mart, and basically, as Jean was saying, we're kind of driving what reports are getting put into the institutional repository of reporting. And as long as I say this is going to help with accreditation, or it's going to help with a ranking report that you're doing on an annual basis, so you don't have to keep listening to me ask for it 100 times, then they're like, okay, we'll prioritize getting that out there. So I find that I'm actually being asked to be in a lot more committees to start looking at what types of reports the institutional should have and what type of transparency we should have with the data that we are collecting. I would say when we talk about that culture of data management, it doesn't matter what technology system that you have. If the data going in isn't good, the data and analysis you do after isn't good either. And I think that's one of the things that we've really been working on in our culture, is to take the data that faculty are putting in, summarize it like we would every 6 months or so, so that we can say, look, if we were doing an accreditation report, here's what the last 6 months would look like. Tell us if there's something wrong, because we took this from what you put in the system. And now faculty are starting to realize, when I get a new conference presentation that I'm going to, or I finish some community-based project, I better put that in there, because I don't want to be left out of the accolades of whatever happened in the last 6 months. So sometimes sharing and making transparent the data that you plan on using helps people understand not only that it's important. I'm not making them do this because I just don't like them and I think they need to put time into putting things into a system, but we're using it for a lot of different purposes, and that transparency, I think, helps build that culture of this is important. It's being used in multiple ways. It's not just once every 5 years. I need to make sure my CV is up to date. Right? These are how it's happening and how it's helping with other strategic priorities across campus.
Thank you. Heloisa, Carolina, Rogerio, you want to add something?
Yeah, in our case, I think we depend on faculty data, as I mentioned before. Faculty data, I mean CV and intellectual contributions data that are in an external system. This is one decision, because we don't want our faculty to input information into different systems, but this brings difficulties in case of our collecting data, because we collect data from an external platform. So, this external platform also is by faculty members. I mean, each faculty member must update their information in this external platform. So imagine it almost 250 faculty updating information in an external system that you don't control. So I think this is a challenge for us.
If I may just add something for the people that are not from Brazil and don't know how it works in Brazil. So in Brazil, you have a national system called LATES. In LATES, all of the faculty coming from any faculty, business, engineering, or anything, have to feed their data. So then you, as a business entity, are reliant on LATES, which is the governmental system, to retrieve partially some of the data. Just to give some context, because some of the people are not Brazilian.
Thank you, Benjamin. Exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
Rogerio?
Yeah, we also have Lattes in our life, and but I think the good side of that is that we only use one base, and then we extract the data, and then we make additional treatment to this data. So, but it's a challenge because, as Heloisa said, the responsibility is at the individual level of the faculty member. Of course, there are ways of creating incentives for faculty to update their CVs, but it's a challenge. And also because we do not control the sections, the types of contributions, or I mean the registers that are available in the CV are not under our control. So it's kind of difficult when, for example, they make some changes and we are not prepared to deal with those changes immediately.
Thank you. Well, a lot have been said about data, so I'm going to remove ourselves from the data for a while because
Thank you.
a lot of other aspects. So what is the engagement that you see from your different stakeholders? Maybe you can talk about your staff, you can talk about your faculty, the students. How do those people react to your accreditation process, to your demands of data, to the understanding of this process? So
I'll start. So we've really been working with our faculty to have them engaged as much as possible throughout every year, so that when we do have a visit, right, they all know kind of what's going on and we don't have to worry about panicking last minute. And so each year we have about half of the faculty that is involved in some way in our assurance of learning process. So that could be there's data that's being collected in their class. It could be that they're reviewing some of the assessments, whatever it is, but it's about half of our faculty and we rotate through. So if you contributed 1 year, we're going to give you a year off the next year so that, you know, no one feels this huge burden of AOL and they come to think of it as common practice because they're kind of always engaged with it, but right, it's not overloading in terms of their workload. There was a couple of questions in the panel too about the site visit. We used our committee structure to help us with our site visit. So we had the committees have a 2-year term before the site visit. So when they came on site, the team was really well coalesced with each group. They knew what had happened over the last couple of years, how, you know, all of the different pieces of the puzzle fit together. So how did, you know, assurance of learning link to program changes and all of those types of things. And they really had some leadership within there. So, you know, they were well prepared and comfortable when it came to talking about what they had done. And I think that's one of the keys that you want to make sure that as you're engaging all of these people, they're taking that responsibility that, you know, all of this stuff that relates to accreditation really is part of that culture that's happening on campus and in your school. And so then, right, it relieves some pressure when a visit is coming or, you know, when they want to share results, right, that becomes common practice. So sharing with a different group of people might be a little more stressful than, you know, sharing internally, but they've shared on a regular basis.
Thank you.
I think if it's part of your strategy, then naturally some people will get more involved than others. But then I think a natural strategy that may happen right before a visit is that if you mention that that specific group is going to meet the peer review team and is going to be asked questions, they get involved quite fast. And it's natural because it becomes part of their job. But of course, the idea would be to get involved on a daily basis and not only right before a visit.
Well,
Carolina?
yeah, in our case, as we are part of a comprehensive university, we require not only the engagement of our people from the business school, but also at institutional level. So I think it was very effective for us that we include them not just for the visit, but since the moment we start the process for writing the report. We had like a person, we established like for each of the chapter, like an internal friendly peer within the institution at the institutional level who can help us reviewing each of the chapter. And that process of making them engage since the beginning of the moment that we start the accreditation process was very helpful. And also they were very open to give us all the support that we require for the visit and for the whole process. And regarding the faculty, of course, it is very important to engage them. And I think once you show them like the value of the accreditation of the process to each of the stakeholders, that's a way for you to easily get the engagement of them, because they will see that the process will not only benefit the institutions but them as well. I mean, for a professor, it's more like prestigious to belong to a university that is accredited than to one that not. So they also have to see their own benefits.
Heloisa?
In general, our school tries to incorporate the accreditation guidelines into the school management process. I mean, we try to incorporate the best practices into our operations. Let me give an example. Annually, heads of the department discuss with faculty, the faculty member academic and professional activities that support their qualification status. They discuss the activities undertaken by the faculty member in the period. If the faculty member has already produced sufficient intellectual contributions, or just some or even no intellectual contributions as defined for their category. So once a year, faculty members are involved with this accreditation related topic. It's part of our faculty management process. Other example is related to assurance of learning. One important piece for faculty engagement was the development of the school's AOL web-based system. The system is a kind of repository of information and documents of the AOL process and offers resources focused on communicating and disseminating information on the AOL to the academic community. The link is available for all faculty members of the school website. And again, it's an important piece for faculty engagement at our school.
Jane? Sorry.
Yeah. Heloisa, I feel like that's probably the way to go, is that you build, you know, these kind of standards and the processes into the life of the school. I think that we try to have a minimum level of kind of literacy around accreditation, especially in our faculty, and then more so with our kind of academic leadership or academic administrators. But I would much rather that, you know, a faculty member could speak to, say, the impact of their research than that they could speak to any particular standard. You know, we also, our assurance of learning is relatively distributed throughout the school. And I've tried to reassure myself that, you know, if a faculty member were to be stopped in the hallway and asked about their involvement with assurance of learning, you know, every faculty member would be able to say, oh, you know, yeah, I guess I haven't collected data last year, but I'm on the BCom program council and we review the report every year, or that they've had some involvement, you know, in that process. But, you know, that when it comes to their research, when it comes to, you know, their reporting on their kind of scholarly contribution, that they could speak around that in a way that would satisfy the needs of the peer review team member, even if it's not, you know, the exact terminology, you know, the specific standard it relates to, where does this appear in what table, you know, that they can speak to the intent and the purpose, you know, kind of the standards in a way that is very central to them.
To rebound on what you just said, Jane and Heloisa, Jane, you mentioned literacy and bringing literacy to top management, to the faculty. Heloisa, you mentioned about like making sure that the strategy of the school was aligned to the accreditation standards. How do you do it? How do you make sure, because you are the recipient of the data, you are the one that read the standards. I don't think everybody in your institution are reading the standards. So how do you transfer this knowledge to the rest of the people in your institution that are key to help you in this accreditation process? Jane, do you maybe do?
You know, we've tried to focus on the kind of the transversal standards, you know, so for AACSB, that's a lot of talk about impact and innovation and engagement. So that there's a literacy about those as, you know, our purpose, right? And at the core of all of our activities, whether it's research or teaching or community engagement, service, exec ed, whatever it is, they can speak to those as a core part of the purpose. And as we've started on our EQUIS journey, we're talking a lot about, you know, connections with practice. Ethical and social responsibility is already a big part of our conversation because of PRME, more so I think than AACSB. Or kind of the global perspective, which is a big part of our school strategy and our, you know, at the very heart of what I think makes St. Mary's and the Sobey School unique is a high degree of internationalization. So I think that's where we start, with those kind of big chunks. And then we look at the practices that are already in place, whether it's around tenure and promotion, if it's around annual report, if it's around you know, student orientation, it's around assessment practice, you know, so we kind of break those out into those, you know, traditional kinds of, you know, activities that's familiar to them, you know, we try, and, you know, I would say we try to do it in a way that doesn't centralize accreditation. You know, they're much more comfortable talking about assessment than they are about assurance of learning. You know, assurance of learning is a very specific method of evaluation. They're really comfortable talking about evaluation and talking about assessment. You know, so as much as we can, you know, I think we try to bring them back to those practices that they're really, really comfortable with. Because accreditation is such a heavy hammer. So we try not to use it any more often. Somebody had referred, or I think Jennifer, in terms of, you know, data and institutional analysis, you know, we try not to any more often than we absolutely have to say, you need to do this for accreditation. You know, what we want to say is, this is a good practice. This will help you. This will serve you in all these different ways. You know, this will help that your dossier, you know, help you have a fuller dossier when it comes time to file for promotion. You know, this will help you, you know, demonstrate, you know, the impact of your research the next time you're applying for a grant. So we really do try to align it with the things that are most comfortable, you know, for them, whether they're faculty, students, or staff, and I'd be interested in people's.
I think that's the thing, right? It's more like we translate, right, the accreditation standards into things that have meaning for students, for our other stakeholders, so that we're talking more about our strategy and our mission and what we want to see accomplished for our students than we are saying, you know, we're trying to meet this particular standard. right? It really is about a cultural fit of what your organization wants to be able to do for its population, and how do you help translate that in a way that inspires people to be part of the process, right? And so we have faculty meetings every month, and we celebrate, right, all of the types of things that, yes, they link to standards, and we could reword them to be, you know, demonstrating these things, but that's what's encouraging people to do more of the things that are helping us meet our mission and our goals. And at the end of the day, standards just happen to be met. I think that's kind of the way you have to think about it.
Heloisa?
Yeah, I would like to add that I think we are doing quite well in case to bring knowledge of the standards related to topics as faculty management, assurance of learning, and program management. But we have been struggling to share the knowledge of the standards on topics such as sustainability, services for students, I mean career services, for example, and to try to bring knowledge related to these topics. I, for example, encourage the managers to participate in accreditation events, for example, to present what the standards, present the standards in commissions, discussions about sustainability and services for students, make myself available to discuss the accreditation point of view of these subjects. But I think this subject is, I mean, this idea to bring knowledge of the standards to our teams is something that we need to do more and better in our case.
Yeah.
I just want to add something that, for example, AOL, which has become a part of the culture of the institution and even expanded to units and programs that are not subject to accreditation. Once that happens, it's the other way around. The faculty member is familiar with that, and when accreditation is approaching, I mean, the visitor, the reporter say, oh, remember that thing that you do? Oh, now it's going to be evaluated by this and that accreditation. So I think once you have the initial accreditation and you institutionalize your processes and it becomes part of your DNA, then it comes naturally. Yeah.
Carolina?
No, I think things have been already said.
Thank you. And Rogerio, you can also use AOL for ABET, because since you're going for ABET, it's one of the key pillar of ABET. So you can actually show what you're doing is really important for other things as well.
That's why I didn't have a heart attack yet. Because we are halfway there.
Good. How do you speak a lot about the management and how important it is to have the management on board with the accreditation process? How do you get them on board? Because sometimes you hear schools that are, look, the deans go to a conference, they hear about this accreditation, they come back and they say, well, great things, I want to be part, I want to be accredited, so let's launch this process. So then it fell on you to actually lead this process. But how do you get them on board and make sure that they continue being on board and being supportive to you, to the team, toward those accreditation process? Carolina, do you want to lead on that?
Well, that's very important because even though in the institutions there is a person in charge, like in our case, there is a coordinator of international accreditations, that's not the person that is gonna be in the meetings when the peer review visit, right? That's only the person in charge of logistics, but the management team, the programs director, the faculties are the ones that are gonna be face-to-face with the peers. So you have, their engagement is very important since the beginning. In our case, accreditation is part of our strategic plan. So, and the strategic plan, it's from the board, you know, from the director. So of course, when it's part of the strategic plan, you ensure that that your dean it's involved. what we did is that we create like this committee and this commission for accreditation, as we were going for the EPAS process, which is program-based accreditation. So the committee of the accreditation was made by the dean, the coordinator of accreditation, and the program directors of the bachelors that were achieving the process. And all of the before start writing each of the chapters, we had a meeting with all of these people, and we all discussed about the questions, the criteria, the standards, how do we think, which thing we should be included in each of the chapters. And then the coordinator was the one that was in charge of writing, of like setting all the ideas in the document. But then she sent it to all of us, all of them. So all of us were reviewing all the different chapters. So we were really into the process, and it was not just a thing for the visit.
Thank you. Heloisa?
It's the same in our case. The main element of involvement is the school's strategic plan. The strategic plan at school we develop in three main phases. One, we prepare the main guiding policies and define the key performance indicators based on many inputs. One of them, the recommendations of accreditation PR teams. The second phase, we discuss the strategic guidelines in our annual planning seminar, which includes the involvement of the managers, directors, faculty, students, staff. And in the last phase is to prepare a detailed strategic plan and defining specific indicators by each school area, including program offices, departments, applied research centers, and so on. So accreditation subjects are part of our management discussions and actions.
Heloisa, you have been accredited for 20 years now, so you had change in top management. How do you make sure when you pass from one dean to the next that this culture is as transported, and that you have one person that is fully supportive so you have embedded it in the strategy, but do you have something in order to make sure that there is this pathway and that the people understand how strategic it is?
You are right. It's the idea to implement this process is to strategic process. The way that we study or define our strategic plan, it's to introduce the idea of process. I mean, we know that one basic principle of quality management is implement process. So this idea of defining a process to develop our strategic plan, defining a process to deal with assurance of learning issues, to define process to program management, all these to faculty management, all the establish of this process. The idea is to consolidate the quality management that accreditations bring to our school. And this process facilitates the changing in the persons that are occupying the management positions at our school. If we have processes implemented at our school, we are aligned with the idea of quality management and with the idea of the accreditation processes. So we are, in summary, we are trying to introduce process at our school a culture of process and that is a basic principle of quality management. I'm not quite sure if I answered your question, but okay.
I mean, so we're a business school inside a comprehensive university that's part of a statewide system. So we're actually like multiple layers of people we have to convince that this investment is worthwhile. And I would think it's pretty much the same as convincing faculty that it's worthwhile to participate in all these activities that we're asking them for, is by showing to these senior leaders that it's of benefit to the strategic objectives and to their position and reaching their individual goals. So some of the ways that we help with that is that a lot of the data that we're collecting, a lot of the stories that we're collecting, those are helping our advancement team when they're meeting with potential donors. Those are helping our recruitment team when they go out to recruit students. It's helping us attract faculty. We're in the process of becoming an R1 research institution. And to be able to demonstrate that having these types of accreditations attracts high quality faculty to want to work here, that's critical in us having the output that we need to be able to reach that R1 status. Engineering, we're a part of a STEM school, so business is not the highlight of the university. And so engineering, science, they all bring in a lot of money in terms of research. In business, our impact is more on the community-based side, is with companies and bringing in potential employment for students across campus. So how does our accreditation help us make those community connections? Those are the stories we end up telling, I think, a lot, that then helps people understand that they need to keep investing, and that just like ABET accreditation and having engineers be able to go to the market, right, the business accreditation is equally important and valuable to the institution. I think accreditation helps them better understand where we fit among our peers in terms of the value that we provide and our research impact, which maybe isn't measured necessarily the same way as engineering and sciences is. Accreditation really helps us tell the story of the business school. And I think that makes it a lot easier for them to understand why this investment is worthwhile.
Thank you. Jane?
The only thing I'd add to that is that I think it's really important as a quality assurance professional in these roles to have a lot of integrity on this, that yes, to have your, be well armed, with the value, the benefit, the return on investment, for different stakeholders, whether that's the president's office or it's the research office, if it's the provo, whatever that may be, but also to have integrity and be prepared to say, that's a very good initiative, that's a good policy, but we can't hang it on accreditation. There have been times, a lot of times, that either a program coordinator, a faculty lead, or a VP, have come to me and kind of are looking to be able to bolster their rationale by saying, there's an accreditation thing here, right, Jane? And, right, Jane, they're winking at me and I'm like, I think that's a great initiative, but I don't think it's fair to say that our accreditation requires us to do that work, because I want them to ask, and I'm gratified, I'm relieved when people get that kind of like, oh, this smells like accreditation something in some way. I'm really glad when they do, and I want them to check in, but I think to have the integrity and say, yes, that, no, that, and I think that's really important in terms of being really clear and concise about both the value of accreditation and the requirements of accreditation, or the costs in some cases.
Rogerio?
I just want to add that top management is essential in this process. In our case, we have the Dean of Academic Affairs, which is part of the executive committee, overseeing all accreditations. So it becomes easier. And then it becomes easier also to ask people, other offices, departments for help, because from top down, the message is accreditation is important, and it's everybody's job to do well during a visit. So it's kind of engaging naturally.
Thank you. We have a question from Sebastian on peer review visit. And if you have some tips or best practice around peer review, what maybe mistake that you made in previous peer review visit. So if you could give some tips or best practice on that, that would be really interesting. Carolina, you want to take the lead on peer review?
Well, yes, I can mention 4 tips, like very concrete. One is having like mock sessions with people that will be involved in the peer visit review in the peer visit. It's not that you have to train in on what they should answer to the questions, but because that has to be natural, you know. But it's very good for the people to have a kind of a knowledge of what type of question can they expect. And also when you have an external person, that person can also give you tips and recommendations on how to look for the sessions, you know. In our case, I remember our external friend peer was a person coming from Argentina. And one of the things that he mentioned that was really helpful for us is that when you have the base room is very important in these sessions, right? And there is a bunch of documents that of course you have the list of the things that have to be in the base room, but the peers does not have like enough time to review them all, right? So you have to be very strategic on how to show them what you really want them to focus on. He, for example, recommend us to put the posters in the base room, showing them, for example, like selling ourselves, let's say this. So showing them our national standing, rankings, statistics and strategies regarding internationalization processes, also our corporate relations, things that you really want to highlight and that you know that they will not have enough time to review it in the document or in the documents that you have in the base room. That was one. Another thing is that for the people that was involved in the meetings, beforehand, we send them, like each of them, 3 documents. We send them the data sheet so that they can have like, for example, to the faculty, a whole knowledge of what we have written and like the overview of the document. And also we send them like the guidelines and the criteria regarding what their meeting was going to be focused on, so that they can have like a previous knowledge. And another thing that also worked with us was that we really look into the profiles of our peers, because it's very important to know like their backgrounds, if they're more into finance or into marketing, because if they're more finance, you think that you can expect they will ask more questions on that area. And that really helped us. And for example, when we were organizing like the faculty that was going to be involved in each of the meetings, the peers like divide. So we try, for example, for the person that was marketing, we try to have like really good faculty of marketing in that meeting, and that's something that helped us.
Thank you. Any other tips that you would want to share?
I would say if you have the opportunity to talk to your committee chair before your peer review team comes out, take advantage, because they will help you kind of get an idea of where they're going to focus their energies, kind of what areas of concern they have ahead of time, so you can deal with as much of it kind of before they get there, as opposed to being surprised when they get there that it's something that you weren't really expecting that they were going to hone in on. So as much as you can, take some of that concern off the table. They still may find something new while they're talking to people, but for the most part, they're not there to try and trip you up. They really will give you some pretty good insight before they come to visit, if there's an area of particular concern that they're going to focus in on when they come to campus. So for example, our committee wasn't really all that interested in meeting with our advisory board at all. Okay, so that was a normal part of the thing. We were going to have a whole dinner with our advisory board, and they were like, no, your advisory board isn't a problem. We'd rather spend time talking to some of our graduate students. So then, we could rearrange the schedule before they got there to ensure that they were meeting with the people that they wanted to meet with.
Thank you.
Something during the visit, I think it's important for the accreditation team or the quality team to be prepared to provide some extra information, maybe prepare an additional report or some additional data. You may need to gather some additional data. Although we may prepare very much for the base room, they are reading something, they are talking to somebody, and then they ask for something that is additional. So my tip would be, don't panic. That's natural, that's okay. If you can provide the information before they leave, okay. Maybe you're going to provide by email after, just because they want to check something, they want some additional information. So it's normal, it happened to us more than once.
And Heloisa?
Yeah, I'm thinking about organize the meetings with alumni and external members, CEOs, executives. My suggestions are have more names on your list than what is required, because cancellation is common. This group, in case of this group, invite these people as soon as possible, invite them to the brief sessions, or meet or phone them to explain the process. You could also offer a kind of lunch with the dean event before the meeting. By the way, it was what we did last year. And one last tip related to this particular group. I'm thinking in the next visit to have a kind of concierge to help with these very important persons, to help me with the invitation, confirmation, the reception, thankfulness, because this group, sometimes these very important persons are very demanding. So, and you are, during the visit, sometimes you don't have time to attend them, to respond to them. So I think I'm thinking about having someone dedicated to take care of this special group.
Well, I think that's such a good idea, and I think it's that is something we will do next time around. We had an experience with our peer review visit where they made dramatic changes to the schedule the night before the visit, and so that was very, very challenging. So one piece of advice I would give is be both prepared and prepared to be very agile. But one of the worst situations we were in is that we did have, our advisory board, another group of very, very senior business members in the community, a second group, and because of some changes that the team made to what they wanted to do, at one point, one of those groups was sitting alone in a room. They never showed up. So, we had somebody kind of gather them and then take them into the room. And then we thought what was going to happen next is one of the peer review team members was going to go into that room and then facilitate the conversation. But they didn't want to, at the last minute, they didn't want to have that event, and nobody showed up. And then, of course, we were so busy, I was so busy tending to what it is they wanted to be doing, I couldn't go and say, I have to thank you for coming, this is what's happened. And it was just, so you're right, having a concierge, I think is a lovely way to think of it as a host, maybe for each group, especially those groups that are coming in from outside of the business school, as that community members. In my case, we had a group of people from the university that were in really key, kinds of roles. That was one of the sessions they didn't attend to. And it really did some harm to the perceptions of the accrediting body. We had some damage control to do after the fact. They were because we had done a mock visit, we had well prepared them. They had prepared outside of that. They showed up, and the peer review team member never came to that session. So, you know, I think having a host, you know, appropriate to the seniority or the esteem of those people that can keep them company, make them feel like their time was worthwhile, you know, walk them out, walk them in. I think that's a really good idea, something we will do next time. So thank you for that.
Carol, we are talking about a big event at the life of the school, right? So we should take care of this event properly.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to add something, is also that we have to have in mind that this peer review visit is the end of a self-assessment process, right? So when we are in the meetings, we always feel like very comfortable and very proud of our strengths. And we always trying to demonstrate what we're doing good. And of course, that's perfect. But they also want to, they're also, I mean, we are aware that we always have weakness, right? And that's also important to have in mind in this process. They also want like transparency and honesty, right? So it's not bad to have weakness. It's good to be aware of our weaknesses, but also to show them what are the improvement processes that we're doing to work on those weaknesses. Not everything is perfect. So that's something that have to be clear in the meetings.
Well, thank you so much. I think this was the last question because our time is up. So I would like to say molto obrigado, muchas gracias, thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people listening to our session today. Thank you for your great insights. Good luck in your quality and accreditation journeys all, and stay safe because COVID is still there. So hope to have the pleasure of seeing you in person, all of you, at a seminar, a conference, or anywhere in the world in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.